Hello and welcome to Model Kit Stuff, and today we're looking at these Infini Ultra Precision Series soft sanding sticks. We're going to have a look at the full range of them. I've been using them for quite some time, so I can tell you pretty much what I think of them. So let's have a review. Hello and welcome to Model Kit Stuff. Yes, it's tool review day today, and the tool we're reviewing is these. These are called Ultra Precision Series Soft Sanders by Infini Models, and they're one of about 5 different types of sanding sticks that they manufacture, and we're going to be reviewing all of them over the next few weeks. Now, I've been using all of them for a little while, so I can now talk you through my experience of them. And what you're looking at here is the full range of these sanders. So they go from 400 grit as the most coarse to 7,000 grit as the most smooth. So you've got a really good range. Now, I need to compare them to something, and what I'm going to compare them to is my preferred sanding stick of choice, which is actually an emery board. So let's just talk about why I like emery boards. So for years and years and years, even before sanding sticks were a thing, I've been using emery boards as my sanding method of choice. And the reason is, firstly, they're really, really flat. Perfectly flat. Sometimes if you get cheaper ones, they can be a little bit curved, but if you get a good one, it's nice and it's flat. They have 2 sides to them. They have a smoother side and a coarser side, and they actually wear relatively quickly, so it doesn't take long, and you've got really quite a super smooth one, and the coarse one is quite fine. And so they usually come in packs of 2. You buy several packs and you end up with different grits. Now, you don't know what the grits are, but you know, oh, this is going to be fine enough and this one's going to be coarse enough. It's pretty much how it works. The other advantage to them is I can cut them, so I can create all sorts of little shapes that can get me into all sorts of areas for doing all sorts of jobs. And here's one that used to be full size, and that's all that's left of it now. And it's super fine, and I cut this one up regularly to make shapes to get into all sorts of nooks and crannies. So they're really flexible, and that's always been my preferred tool. Now, I've got many different brands of sanding sticks, and I'm going to be comparing these to both my preferred choice and other sanders that I've got, and we can talk about the pros and cons. So the first positive thing to say about them is we've got clearly marked grits. Now, personally, as a modeler, I don't find it really important to know exactly what the grit is. I don't think, oh, this is a job for a 600 grit. I think, right, that one just needs a light sand. And so I go for that grit. But when you're sanding and doing a big job and you're starting from coarse and you want to get it all polished out, having these numbers helps you go through that series in the right sequence. So I generally, when I'm sanding, I will start with as coarse as I feel I need and go in one direction, and then I'll move to the next one down and go in a different direction. And that's how you get a smooth sanded finish quickly. So it's good that those numbers are on there. So that's the first positive thing I'll say about them. But of course, all the competition put their numbers on as well, with the exception of Flory models. Not that you can get them anymore, but Flory never did. But other brands certainly do. These are the ones from, they're wearing off a bit now, but you can see them. These are the Humbrol ones, which are a proprietary brand repackaged for them. So yeah, I like that. Then there's the size. They're a good size actually, because they have a decent width, so you can cover a wideish area. That, you know, 172 aircraft, it covers a fairly decent area, whilst not being unwieldy like some of the ones that we'll look at later on. And the length is comfortable in the hand, so you can hold it in your hand comfortable and use an end, or you can put it in your fingers and use the whole thing, or you can put it down flat and use the top. So I find them really quite useful, whereas some of these others, what you find is when you've got a thick end, this one's narrower, you'll see, quite often that means that the narrow end of it, when we've got two different sizes, it tends to flex and break, and then you end up cutting them in half. And I've not got any examples, but it's quite common that these start to flex at this point here and then break, and I end up cutting them down at that point, and so I have thin ones and thicker ones is sort of how it works for me. So far I haven't had any issues with these wanting to break. The one that's in the worst condition, this 400 one, where it's had quite a go, you can see there's a crease starting to form there. So I have a bit of a crease there. So I've got a bit of a bend that's starting to damage this. Now, you have the same grit on both sides. So for each sanding stick, you've got two lots of surface to use, which is fantastic. So it means that the life of your sanding stick is sort of extended by the fact that you can use both sides, whereas different brands do it differently. Some have them coarser on one and less coarse on another. Others do as these, the same on both. So it all depends on your brand. These have the same on both sides, and I really, really like that. I found that of all the Infini sanding sticks, these are my go-to ones because they are so easy to use in terms of size and do such a nice range of sanding. So I can go in and do something really quite minor, and you know, it's pretty much going to get in anywhere, and then I can clean it up nice and easy. So I find all of the grits fairly easy to clean up. Doesn't mean they don't clog over time, because they do. They're all washable, so it's a plastic substrate with then a foam substrate laminate, and then you've got the top layer, which is manufactured by high voltage electrostatic induction, whatever that means. So yeah, you can wash them, but they take a little bit longer to dry out than your emery board does, but not as long as a sanding sponge does. So from that point of view, they're quite practical. Now you can purchase them in a full pack like this. So this gives you one stick of each of the sizes. So this is the full set, and you can see the price is £9.50, so not expensive. I tend to have one set in use, one set in backup, and you can also buy them individually. So you can get packs of 4 of the same size, and I tend to keep a pack of 600s in because it's the grit that I tend to use the most. So I probably find that I use these 3 the most, and then these come out if I need something with a lot more precision in terms of the finish. So I'm going to be painting it, it's going to be very visible, I need to have it polished up. Whereas, you know, I can take a nub off a mating surface with these 3, and that's sufficient. I don't need to polish it up because it's a mating surface. It's going to get glue on it, and you ain't going to see it. So you end up using these 3, in my experience, more than the others. So you could go out and for what would it be, £13.50, buy 3 packs of 3 of those, and you'd probably do most jobs most of the time. Or you could spend a bit less, £9.50, and get 1 of each and see how long they last. Now, I've been using these probably about 6 months now, and none of these in my view are coming end of life, but these 3 you can see have had a harder life. Some of these have done some fairly significant polishing jobs, and you can see the wear on them, but they're still very, very usable, and they do the job really well. Downsides to them, well, obviously because it's a double-sided sponge on a plastic substrate, it's a bit harder to cut down with scissors than an emery board. Also, they're a bit chunkier than an emery board, so they're a bit more difficult to get into tight nooks and crannies, whereas an emery board, being so thin, you can really get into small places. So that said, they are certainly thinner than a good number of products on the market, so better than sponges. But I would say a lot of sanding sticks are probably about the same thickness. So they are a sponge, so they do have give. You can see there's give in there, so as you press, it will give you give. So if you've got a nub on a surface like this, you're going to be rounding that nub off, whereas an emery board won't, because it's got no give. There's no sponge on it, and an emery board will take it down flat unless you start shaping it yourself. So that's something to be mindful of. So I've been using these now for about 6 months, and I estimate that it's at least another 6 months before I start considering throwing any of these away or starting to chop them up. They last really, really well. The abrasive doesn't change its nature. It doesn't seem to get the grit doesn't seem to decrease very rapidly, at least. I've not seen them get damaged. I mean, there's no frayed edges or anything like that, which you often get on sanding sticks. The first thing that happens is you start seeing the edges break away. There's none of that after 6 months. Like I say, this is the worst one, and this being the most abrasive grit is probably the one I put a bit of extra effort in. But actually, it's the 600 that I use the most as a general rule, and as such, I buy extra 600s because I suspect I'll be swapping these out more often than the rest of them. So I have one set on the go, one set in spare, plus some others that I'm using more frequently. And 600 grit just feels right for most jobs, and then you can take it down and polish it up, or if needs be, you can step it up. So I've got to say, I'm very happy with them, and of all the sanding sticks that I've used, I think these stand up the best. They're very, very sturdy. They don't break up. These things crease and damage fairly quickly. Within a month or two, you're starting to find problems, in my experience. And as you can see with this one, this is a flory one. You can see there's a crease there starting, and the edges are fraying. And this one has hardly been used. It's probably been used a couple of dozen times, maybe. So they do start to break up, whereas these hold their nature. However, this still has a place, so I won't be getting rid of these for those. But there you have it. I'm very happy with them. I think they're great. I don't recommend products ever, but what I would say is you'd do a lot worse than getting yourself a set of these. Hope that was useful. You enjoy your modelling, and I'll see you very soon. Bye for now.